And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm host Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Formed in 2020, Northern First Nations Alliance consists of representatives from Haisla, Kitnyao, Kitsalis, Kitsimkalim, Kikatla, and the four Nass Valley Nisga'a Nation villages of Gitlakdamix, Gitwinsilk, Lakwazap, and Gingolith. On today's Open Connection, Manon Joice introduces us to NFNA.
Yes. So what I wanted to talk about really briefly is Northern First Nations Alliance. What is that? It's the strength of four nations that got together. The Gitxsan, the Tsimshian, the Nisga'a, and the Haisla. They represent a population of almost 13,000 people here in the Northwest and throughout BC. And what they've done is, they said, we are going to deal with social determinants of health. And we're here today talking about strong communities. But strong communities are healthy communities. And health is our greatest wealth. And what I want to encourage you today is to support the work of the Northern First Nations Alliance, who have a big dream, and that is to triumph over tragedy. I'm going to be sharing with you some sensitive statistics. So I just want to caution you, there is a smudging room outside within a trailer. Do not leave this room with open wounds. Feel free to chat with me afterwards. Because what I know for sure amongst all my travels of late is each of us has been touched by substance abuse and the grief that follows with it. But the Northern First Nations is bigger than that. They're working on 4 pillars which pertain to something called the social determinants of health. They're looking at the youth and the elders. They're taking a look at education. They're taking a look at housing, and finally the pillar of health. So what we know for sure is currently, can we go back a slide, folks? Thank you. So our volunteer health and wellness committee members currently include Janice Angus, Alex Grant Jr., Jerry Inkster, Brenna Innes, Linda Morvan, Jeannie, who coordinates all of our work, and a special shout out to Miss Tina Grant, who was our former intern, and she did great work for us, Arthur, and Charlene Webb. So these are the volunteer committee boards. They are the subcommittee for the health and wellness, and that's who I report to as a contractor, and they report to the Northern First Nation Alliance Board. So this is the situation today. I am going to be quoting Dr. Shannon McDonald, who was the former acting chief medical officer of our First Nations Health Authority. She states that the data underscores the immense toll that drug toxicity is having on the lives of Indigenous people and their communities, and the fact that the toxic drug crisis continues to wreak havoc on Indigenous people 5 years after the BC government declared a public health emergency is an indication that much more needs to be done. We're now nearing 7 years of that public outcry of a crisis. And from Dr. Bonnie Henry, she is talking about the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic affected every aspect of society and exacerbated the inequities of Indigenous communities. She goes on to say, because the next slide will share with you something a little startling. Within a year, because of COVID and their mandates, in BC, we have seen a 119% increase in toxic deaths.
In all of Canada? Like 30%?
It's 52%.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's really bad.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. When a family is searching for a drug and alcohol rehab program, they will come across facilities that have waiting lists and this is simply because there is not enough room at the time to treat the patient. Wait times for these programs could be days, weeks, or months, but that depends on the program. Let us return the conversation with Manon Joice.
Right now, our First Nations people in BC disproportionately represent the toxic drug deaths at a rate of 14.7%. Despite being in the province, only 3.3% of our population. First Nations women die at a rate of almost 10 times greater. And our men die at a rate of 4.3 times greater. But here in the north, where accessibility is an issue, health equitability is an issue, First Nations represent 36.1% of all toxic drug deaths. And of all toxic drug events here in the north, 45.2%. Our nearest detox center is in Prince George. It is greater than 8 hours away. Many people don't even get there. I have the stats. We have more people in our region canceling their time there than actually going. So it's just important to note that, and I don't share that to sting, it's just to share that. The good news is 4 nations had come together to begin healing for their people. I was hired to do 2 very, very important works. The first is called community asset mapping. And community asset mapping is a strengths-based approach. So basically, I'm going to keep it short because I know I am the last speaker. We're taking a look at, and I've already mapped out everything externally that are the assets. So think about things that can help a person after they've gone to a treatment center to have wraparound care and services. What is there for them? Education, life skills, housing. So what I've done is I've done all the external mapping of Northwest BC. It's only the size a little bit greater than France. I know I've driven it. And so the good news is that part of the project is now complete. But also what's important to look at is I'm going to show you something a little new about this particular proposed center. And that is we're taking a look at your common cultural interventions and assets. So those things like your ceremonies, your celebrations, your drumming, your harvesting. So we define our community assets as people, the greatest asset of all, organizations, environment, local economy, your culture and spirituality, your information, your knowledge, your communication, your language, how is that shared? Your political capital. I would advise right now there is no greater time to have political capital right now. 4 First Nations strong today, and we hope to continue to grow that. And then your community as a whole. So I think we missed a slide earlier on. What I need to just clarify is how did we get here that the Northern First Nations Alliance are now at this price, or at this place where we're able to actually start doing a community asset mapping exercise all throughout. And what you're going to learn a little bit more about is the feasibility study. And that was because they had completed a statement of readiness that was shared with the First Nations Health Authority. And it's the First Nations Health Authority that invested in this work. So it's real work. This is not a university project. This is not so that I can complete a master's degree or a PhD. This is to build an Indigenous, lands-based, detox, and wellness center. And the funding has started, and I'm excited about the progress that has happened since I was hired on January the 4th. So, in order to get this work done, I'm not familiar with all of the cultures. You know that, because you know I misspoke a few of the wonderful names that sit here. But we have decided to hire in each one of the communities a community navigator, and that person helps me to carry out workshops, complete surveys, and to give the message to the people that this is happening.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The goal of asset mapping is to document a community's existing resources, incorporating these strengths into community development work. The process of asset mapping can include identifying institutions, individuals, and citizens associations existing within communities that serve as positive resources. Let us return to the conversation with Manon Joice.
So that was phase one, community asset mapping. What exists now that we're able to build upon within the Northwest? What are the wraparound services? Who are our allied helpers and stakeholders in healthcare? And then next comes the feasibility study, which is phase two. I am scheduled to complete this by the end of October. You'll see by this it's greater than a feasibility study. Those of us who write feasibility studies know that feasibility studies come and are done under what's called TELUS and the pillars of TELUS. We study, is it technologically feasible? Is it economically feasible? Is it legal? Can you even have your own detox center? What about organization? And finally, scheduling. But I add one more. What about ethics? And for this particular project, it's obvious it would be unethical to wait yet another day in order to begin the process of having our own Northwest Detox and Wellness Center. So the feasibility study included everything I said, but it will identify the requirements to construct, implement, and operate. So right now, I can share with you that we have sourced out potential lands and buildings in order to start this sooner than later. Next, the feasibility study will describe in detail the core and complementary services, and that's why we do asset mapping, to partner with the Northern Health Authority, to partner with those other groups. Please understand, we're looking at medically supported substance abuse withdrawal care and services. The feasibility study will also detail operating requirements, who's going to work there, how many people. I anticipate about 25. And the feasibility study will identify sources of funding. Good news, I was already invited to and able to make a presentation to our province and to the provincial standing committee to include our FINE project within the 2023 budget. And our hope is that it will be one of the projects selected for that fund. So this is where we differ. We are talking about something that the First Nations Health Authority is a champion of, has been used in Australia. It's called lands-based healing. I'm not talking about building a hospital. We're not talking about something that is clinical. We're talking about a home. We're talking about care with dignity. I talked about a wellness center, not a sickness center, and taking people back to their spirit. I used to work in mental health many, many moons ago, and what I learned very quickly was that the tools and resources that us in the hospital had to help those people dealing with mental illness did nothing to help those dealing with spiritual brokenness. But I do believe this will. Land-based healing, common principles, focuses on culturally safe models of care, views Indigenous languages as a foundational component, and we heard about the importance of that. How excited in that video the youth was to be able to listen to language that came from an elder. It is controlled locally and fosters collaborations. It is meant to be owned by the Northern First Nations Alliance, which is a charitable group now. It is a nonprofit society today. It improves the quality of life of individuals, families, and communities. The center promises not to only help treat the individual, but families as well. It honors in local strengths and resources and builds on the expertise at home. It targets multiple determinants of health, and it is viewed as an essential element of our quality health system, not a sick system. And lastly, it fosters connection to traditional territories and land-based values. It integrates the First Nations wellness model of care. I just wanted to say it's been an honor to have an opportunity to listen to those of you before me speak. I've learned so much. I will share with you. I've also seen so much grief. We deserve better. There's an opportunity to triumph over tragedy. Legacy projects are so fine and worth investing to. Sadly, the cost of wanting a legacy project too often is in order to alleviate pain and suffering. But today, you have the will, you have the resources, you have the ability to finally triumph over tragedy. So thank you for the honor to be your closing speaker.
Ooh.
Maybe 10? Let's say 50?
20.
It's 200.
In all of Canada? Like 30%?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
In sports broadcasting, a sports commentator, also known as a sports announcer or sportscaster, provides a real-time commentary of a game or event, usually during a live broadcast, traditionally delivered in a historical present tense. In this final segment of Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this 1979 story.
You know, we're a nation of sports fans. We've enjoyed sports for a long, long time, over 100 years. Of course, we started off with lacrosse. Now we enjoy a multitude of sports. There's baseball, football, even bowling, all sorts of sports. But we've got one national sport, and that sport comes in many forms. And, of course, that sport is hockey. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, our national sport. Because tonight, from the city center, it's hockey night in Kitimat. Recently, CFTK morning man Pat Fry found an interesting way to help raise part of $122,000 for the Kitimat Community Theater Fund. It was called the Great Tabletop Hockey Challenge. A person would put $2 or more down on a game. After 7 goals, if Pat wins, you pay the fund. And if you won, the amount was donated in your name. Try as they would, Pat just kept winning, and winning. And the puck is dropped and game is underway. And Provan seems to have the puck. Mr. McDonald again. Off into the left wing, into the center, and the Montreal Canadiens. Oh, and he just scored on himself over to the left wing now, and he scores. And the goaltender saves it. Oh, and a blistering slap shot almost in the net. Left winger again from Montreal scores. And the Leafs put it back into their own end. And, oh, another goal off number 28. The center player for Pat Fry's Canadiens. 4-0 score. 5-0. All money from this going, of course, to the Kitimat Community Theater Fund. Another goal, that's 6. They need to raise $122,000 altogether. And this is one way of raising money through this game. The way it works is a challenger will come up and put up a minimum of $2. Oh, and that is it. Pat's next contender was a bit more of a threat. Oh, and a goal is scored on Pat Fry. Finally this evening, this young gentleman has scored a goal on Pat Fry's famed Montreal Canadiens. What's he going to do with it? Will he go out to the center? Will he get a goal? Will he lose it again? Who knows? The score right now, 3-1. And it's in front of the net. He shoots. Oh, and a great save. Number 22 for the Montreal Canadiens, centering it and over to the left wing, and he scores. Try to get it out now. Oops, scores, and that is the end of the game. Pat, you had a goal scored against you. Is that a sign of things to come, do you think?
Well, I was letting down a bit in that game. I guess I'll have to tighten up on the defense and have a talk with my goaltender. And
The crowd doesn't seem to like you here, Pat.
well, that always happens when someone is too powerful. They always root for the underdogs, and I guess in every case tonight, it's going to be an underdog against me.
This is how it is to play Pat Fry on a game that you have never played before. The first thing that I noticed is when you sit down to this, Pat's played. How long you played on this thing, Pat?
Years.
2 years he's been on this board, so he knows it all. I don't. A minute warm up, that's all you get. And then the puck is dropped. Away we go. Look at that. I got it. Finding the goaltender is really hard too. Excuses. Not excuses. Great sport. And it looks like my error in goal number 1 against me. The old Montreal Canadiens against the Toronto Maple Leafs, an old rivalry that goes back to all the dawn of Canadian time almost. I'm in trouble. Oh, we're gonna count that? I have the puck. This may be my moment of glory right here. And it is. I scored. Oh, you're in trouble now, Pat. Here we go. You're in big trouble. Oh, no.
And after my resounding defeat, TKU's man Doug Smith gave it a go.
The Atlanta Flames, who used to be very good. They're going to get even better side. Guaranteed. Best of luck, Doug. Don't push your luck. Well, yes, before we go any further, introduce our official referee here this evening. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Rob Andrews for CFTK Sports in Kitimat.
And you know all about the game of hockey?
Well, I know fairly well.
I guess you don't have to worry about tripping here, huh?
No, we're fighting, so it should be a good game.
And the puck is dropped, and the Canadians lose the face-off. Fry loses the face-off, although his goaltender retrieved the puck after a mighty bounce around the play. And he scored number 1 off number 10, his right winger, as he brings back his defenseman. He scores on himself. In the right wing, over the left wing. Montreal Canadiens in and out. That is a goal. Doug's getting mad now. He wants to win this game. He's got to get 7 straight goals. A lot of close calls in this game, to be sure. And that is the game right there. He beat you 7-0.
That's right, and the referee has got $10 of mine that is going to disappear.
Well, it's not going to disappear.
No, actually, that's going to be 1 brick in the community theater, right there.
Mayor George Tom dropped by too, ready for victory.
Think you're going to beat him?
Oh, sure, no trouble. He's once you try our council on, there's no match there.
And Mayor George Tom convinced that he's going to win this game, and he has the puck, number 26 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And where is it? Which one is it? You got her. Now number 9 puts it back up into, bad territory as Pat Fry's center man. A lethal weapon in Fry's game plan comes in the way. Also, his winger is very strong. Number 10 especially, who scored many, many, many goals tonight. And now he has the puck. Will he score? And the mayor puts it in on his own.
As confident as the mayor was, he was losing quite badly. On
the 9th day of November, 1979 at Kitimat, County of Prince Rupert, Province, British Columbia, did unlawfully and willfully participate in a game of chance, namely tabletop hockey, having full knowledge that you were taking an undue advantage of your worthy opponent, the good and said Mayor George Tong. You are therefore being held in custody for a period of 10 minutes to give the said opponent the opportunity to score a few goals.
Mayor George Tom seems to be having a little bit of trouble manipulating the puck, to say the very least, and the official referee once again gives it to him. And there's a goal. He scores, and it's another goal. He shoots and he scores, and Mayor George Tom has won. An interesting evening of tabletop hockey, with Pat Fry winning all games but one, of course, that 3-2 victory by George Tom, the mayor of Kitimat. All this, of course, to raise $122,000 for the Kitimat Community Theater Fund. And although people were putting up their $2 to $4 to $6 and $8 and lost it, the secret, of course, is that nobody really lost.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but a connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our mastery within. I'm Robert Pictou.